Hypr Controllers reached out to me and asked if I wanted to take a look at their signature FPS DualSense custom controller that is kind of a pre-built option. The fantastic thing about Hypr is the pricing. So with that said, let's get into this unboxing. As you can see, the box is pretty minimal and simple. And let's see if we can get this open. So you're immediately greeted with the warranty card. And on the back side of this, you can see that the build that they did with this signature. Right here you can see build number sample. Yours will be more customized if you purchase from them. The fantastic thing about this, the warranty lasts for 180 days upon purchase and upon receipt of your controller. So that's a nice addition to the really affordable price of the signature line of DualSense controllers by Hypr Controllers. Then the next thing you get is a thank you for your purchase. On the back side of this is controller support. This is where you're going to find how you remap the back buttons on your signature line of controllers. So go ahead and scan that QR code in your packaging and you'll be brought to the support page for your controller. There's this foam on top of that, and that's it. And then you're greeted with the controller. We'll pull this out and move it off to the side for a sec. And that's all you get in the box for the signature line. That's part of the affordability of this line of controllers. Right off the bat, you will notice the cutout is customized. It looks like they did some customization here and removed the PS button. I really like this because it's more reminiscent of the DualShock 4. They also did their little logo there, and I really like that. It's a nice touch. They are all customized matte black buttons. There's nothing special about them. You're not going to find that these are separate, you know, like for fighting buttons. On some custom controller makers, they can make these clicky buttons, but not in this instance. Same goes for the action buttons here as well. They're just custom black, you know, murdered out type of thing. The faceplate is of a gunmetal gray, and it's a matte finish, and it doesn't feel too slippery, but it's not nothing that's like super grippy or soft touch. It feels really nice. Moving on to the touchpad, you can see that it is been done in a black matte finish. You will notice fingerprints showing up from time to time. Moving on to the trim. It is also a custom matte black finish, so it ties really well into the touchpad. Moving on to the thumbsticks, you can see that these are of like an OEM type, but they're not quite the same. There's also some little like designs in there. I don't know if you guys can see it as I move the camera here and there. You can see the reflection on these. There's some sort of little logo within them. So these aren't like OEM, but they're also the same height. So let me grab an OEM controller and show you what I'm talking about. You can see the OEM controller and the Hypr Controllers Signature FPS have the same height of thumbstick. I really enjoy that, but you can also notice that the Hypr controller has more of an angled bevel on its thumbsticks than that of on the, you know, OEM controller. So I mean, this is a really nice implementation of thumbsticks, even though they did somewhat of a custom job here. I really like the Hypr controller thumbsticks, and they feel really nice and have just enough rigidity as the same as what you would experience on like an OEM controller. So that's one thing that you're not going to get in this controller build, as well as like increased thumbstick tension. This is just standard thumbstick tension, but these are custom thumbsticks that Sony has built into their OEM controllers. Okay, so that's the front of this controller. Let's move on to the back, where the value really starts to show on this FPS controller by Hypr Controllers. You are greeted with anti-sweat grip, and you'll notice that as soon as you pick this thing up. This is something that I haven't experienced on any controller as of yet, and this is by far the best anti-slip grip that I've had in my hands to date. It's one of the best, if not the best. These little polka dots here add grip to your hands, and it just feels absolutely great. But it doesn't feel too like flimsy or whatnot. It feels like it's a solid plastic, but not. You'll have to hold one in your hands for you to experience for yourself. And then you also get 4 remappable buttons on this. These are in the low configuration. You can also get them in lowest, to where you'll have them down here and they'll be actuated with your ring fingers. We'll look at that more here in a second. There are also removable caps on these, so you just have to dig your fingers underneath and then you can remove the cap, and they're easily replaceable. Same thing that you would experience on any 4-button controller manufacturer out there, and then they sit in place and they're really, really clicky. The responsiveness of these buttons is really nice, and the clickiness is really consistent across all 4 of them. You're not going to really, experience any like difficulty on actuating them. So that's a nice touch considering the cost of this controller. So here we'll take a quick listen. That's it for the back of the FPS controller, but one thing I wanted to quickly mention before we move on to the triggers and bumpers is that this isn't a custom designed back or anything like that. There's nothing going on for the thickness adjustment or anything like that. The only thing that you're going to notice is the anti-sweat grips and the 4-button remappable buttons for your gaming experience. So with that said, if you had Sony's like DualSense charger, this will fit and is compatible with it. It slides right into place just like that of any OEM controller. So that's a really nice addition and consideration that Hypr Controllers made when making their FPS series or their signature series of controllers. So just know that you will be able to charge your controller on this OEM charger by Sony. So with the FPS model of Hypr Controllers signature line, you will get Hypr's digital click system for the bumpers and triggers. So these are digital clicks. That's one thing that you're gonna wanna note if you're making this purchase. This model here, the FPS, is the most expensive. We'll talk a little bit about like the models that they have available here shortly, but just off the rip, these are digital clicks, and you will lose the adaptive trigger system that you would experience on, say, the OEM. This is something that you're going to want to take note of if you're considering the FPS model. You don't have to sacrifice the adaptive trigger system on like the OEM for the signature line, because they have different models available that allow you to use this with an adaptive trigger. So as you can see here, there's a lot of travel, and with this one it's just a digital click. And with that, you have a much faster reaction time when playing like, Call of Duty or first-person shooters. So you have a little bit of an advantage over your competition out there. But when it comes to like racing or like golfing or sports games where it's required that you make gradual like adjustments, this may not be the controller for you. But the good thing is that, Hypr Controllers makes different models of their signature line of controllers that allow you to make that decision. You also save quite a bit in cost when you go to a lower model that has the adaptive trigger system. For me though, I primarily play first-person shooters and I like the digital click system. And these are really responsive. There's no mushiness in either one of them, and they provide a really satisfying response to your actions. I want to take a moment and briefly discuss the differences between the 3 different signature line of controllers that are available on Hypr Controllers website right now and their pricing. So hopping over to their website, you can see that there are 3 different models: the Hypr Signature PS, PS Plus, and FPS. So the introductory pricing that you're going to realize with the Hypr Signature line is the PS, and that starts at around $160 at the time of this video. You get 2 buttons on this that are reprogrammable, and also you will retain the adaptive triggers and rumbles. For an extra $10, you can go the PS Plus route and get an additional 2 buttons. And when you go to add those different buttons, you can either go low or lowest. In my mind, I am really enjoying the low placement, and those allow me to utilize my middle finger across both of them. I'll talk a little bit about that here shortly, and I'll demonstrate where that placement is. Lowest is going to be your ring finger actuation on that. Hopping back to the comparison chart here, you can see FPS adds quite a bit of value for an additional $10 based off of starting price of the PS Plus. This one starts at $180, but comes with a Hypr click trigger and bumper system and has the rumbles removed. So for those of you out there that want a lighter controller and have the digital click system on the bumpers and triggers, this is the route to go. So looking closer at the FPS, the starting price is $180 and you only get 2 rear buttons. I would highly recommend that you spend the additional $10 and add 4 buttons on the back of this controller. Even if you don't intend on using them, it's always nice to have more input on your controller especially if it's only going to cost you $10 additional. So that is a quick breakdown of the pricing of the Signature line that is available on Hypr's website right now. Depending on when you are watching this video, as you head over to Hypr Controllers website, they may or may not be in stock, so just keep that in mind. All right, so on to the back of this controller and how it fits within my hands. So I have medium to large size hands. The way that these are placed, I would recommend that those of you that want to just use your middle finger for actuation of both of these back buttons to go with the low placement. If you don't want to do that and you want to actuate with your ring finger, go with the lowest, because these get moved down quite a bit on the handle part of the DualSense. So when I say that you can actuate these back buttons with your middle finger, both of them, you can see how my finger fits. So if I put my hand, that's how it'll fit. This way I can actuate this low button with the tip of my middle finger, and in the standard placement here, I can actuate with the middle of my middle finger, if that makes sense. So now I can actuate all of my back buttons with one finger because of the way that these are placed on the FPS controller with the low placement. This Signature line allows you to do 2 buttons, so you can save some cost there as well if you wanted to just go 2 buttons. I would recommend that you go 4. Everybody should go 4, because at some point you'll get to a point where you learn how to use these back button actuations and take full advantage of them. So I I remap all of my face buttons to these back buttons, and it allows me to make quick actuations in the game without ever removing my fingers from the thumbstick. With remapping capability, you can remap any input on the controller that is available to you. So any of the directional buttons you can do. R3 and L3 as well can be mapped to this. Okay, so let's talk about how to remap the back buttons on this controller. First thing you're going to want to do is hold down on the directional pad and any one of the 4 or 2 inputs on the back of your controller. Well, hold those down for 5 seconds, then the mute button will illuminate. In my instance, and in this video, you will see that the mute button is faintly illuminated, but it is on. So with that said, you've entered remap mode. Now you pick any one of your face buttons and press it in conjunction, press the face button, then press the rear button for remap, and then move on to the next one. So don't hold it down for too long. If you hold it down for 5 seconds or more, it will exit remap mode. And then pick your next button. So I'm gonna go like here, press the face button. So I'm gonna do triangle, and then the back button, and let go. And then continuously go through that process. When I am done, so the last one, let's say this last one here, right here, I'm gonna hold the square, and then this button, and then I'll hold it down for 5 seconds. My mute button will then go off, it'll turn off, and then I've exited remap mode, and I have successfully remapped all of my back buttons. That is a really nice, smooth way of implementation that Hypr Controllers did with this DualSense controller. It's really, really easy to do, and you can try many different variants or variations of remaps on the back of this controller quickly and easily, even while in game. My initial impressions of the Hypr Controllers Signature FPS DualSense controller for the PlayStation 5 are really, really good. Like, this thing is amazing considering its price point. The way that it is configured in this video is $190 out the gate. You don't get any, accessories or anything, but the warranty, the back button availability, the quality control that they kind of put this thing through is absolutely worth it. I think this is the most competitive custom DualSense controller on the market today. And if you really want to save some money and get all of the features that are available to custom controllers out there, this thing is probably the one that you're going to want to go with. Like, this legit is one of the most impressive controllers on the market right now. And I'm not just saying that because they sent it to me, because I would have purchased this thing anyways, because I'm working on creating a video where I compare all of these, heavy hitters in the custom DualSense market. This is my initial impressions of this controller. I haven't had enough time with it to give you like a full review, because I want to spend some more quality time in gaming it and putting some hours on this thing before I can share my full thoughts. So if you're interested in pricing and availability of this controller, I will leave it linked in the description. I know that Hypr Controllers is kind of backdated in delivering orders right now because of the high popularity of this, this system that they are making for a really affordable price. That is in no way, shape, or form affiliated with me. That's just me driving traffic to their website. So you can find this controller for yourself if you're interested. I don't get any affiliate kickback or anything like that. I'm just driving traffic over there. I will say, full disclosure, that there are some links down there that are my affiliates, so just be aware of that. Before I close, I have to disclose that Hypr Controllers sent me this out for testing and review, and there will be more videos that come, in the future for a review of this controller, so stick around or subscribe for those. Well, that about does it for me in this one. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, you know what to do. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I'm Tomas, and I'll catch you in the next one.